Today, I'm thrilled to be sitting down with Elliot Hasoon, an online fat loss coach and self-proclaimed citizen of the world. In this episode, we're diving deep into Elliot's transformative journey from gym floors to global coaching, exploring how the pandemic reshaped his career and the fitness industry as a whole. Together, we talk about balancing travel and work, the shift from aesthetics to sustainability in fitness goals, and the art of building meaningful connections in a virtual world. But it doesn't stop there. Elliot opens up about the power of therapy in self-discovery, his aspirations for the future, and the unexpected lessons he's learned while living life on the move. Whether it's overcoming imposter syndrome, planning for a family, or finding stability in the chaos, this conversation is packed with insights and inspiration. So grab your favorite brew and get comfortable. Welcome to ChatterBeans, where every cup holds a story. I'm your host, Isaac Kong, and in this brand new podcast series, I'll be sitting down with people from all walks of life. Join me as we dive into their stories, the lessons they've learned, the memories that have shaped them, and those bits of advice they wish they could share with others. And the surprising things you'd never guess just by looking. Every episode, we'll sit, chat, and discover the extraordinary hidden in everyday lives. So grab your favorite brew and settle in. It's time for some good coffee and even better conversation here on ChatterBeans. Elliot, welcome to ChatterBeans.
Thank you so much for having me.
Imagine we're in a coffee shop. What is your go-to coffee order?
Oh, when I'm doing things that I'm super focused on, they're black Americanos. Like, I like to be in that different mindset, but otherwise I do like an oat latte or something like that.
What is it with oat milk?
I like an oat latte. I think it's avoiding the dairy because I find that everyone in the world right now has at least a dairy sensitivity. So if it's not going down the route of a black Americano, there's going to be something that doesn't upset my stomach but still tastes delicious.
Nice. Yeah. Have you got any favorite coffee shops?
I do. I have a couple. I have one in Oxford that I really like, which is called Colombian Coffee Roasters. Have you been whilst you've been in Oxford?
I have, and it's down, what's the road?
It's inside the covered market.
Oh, no, I haven't been.
Yeah, then you need to.
I was thinking
down
of
the road.
You know that cobbled road opposite, down the end of the...
Yeah, you're right. There is one there. I can't remember the name, but it's decent as well.
Anyway, yeah.
That's probably second choice of Oxford. But when you head into the covered market, it's very small, but it's called Colombian Coffee Roasters. I also like Arabica, as you know.
Yeah.
I found it in Dubai the first time. I still think that Dubai's version is better than the UK. I went to UK.
Do you?
Yeah, I went to the one in...
Covent Garden?
No, it was close to Liverpool Street. What's that place called?
Don't know.
No, so it's close to Liverpool Street, and I wasn't that impressed. I think I even had just like an Americano because that's a good taste and good test of whether a coffee is good or not. Exactly. And kind of a little bit of a letdown compared to Dubai. So when you head to Dubai, try out the Arabica there. That's probably my top two, I would say.
Yeah. That is expanding quite quickly.
It is.
There's loads in Hong Kong now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Elliot, welcome to ChatterBeans.
Thank you so much for having me.
How are you?
I am very good. It's so good to be here.
It's so good to see you. Thank you. It's so good to see you in person in London. I think it's really helpful to start off how we know each other. So we've known each other, 4 years?
Yes, at least.
And you've been my online coach for most of that time.
Yep.
Helping me lose some weight, fat loss.
Yeah.
But it's the first time that we're meeting today, so I'm super excited.
Yeah,
it's really
likewise.
good to see you in person. Elliot, tell us about you. Where are you in life? What does it look like for you? Wherever you want to start.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Elliot, as you mentioned, and you've known me for a good 4 years now, and we met from me being your online coach. I have been an online coach since 2019 or 2018, in fact. I did a couple of years with the company and then I transitioned into doing my own thing. But prior to that, I was a personal trainer as well. So I started my career, I think it was 2013, something like that. So I've been doing it for roughly around 11, 12 years now. Okay. And that's pretty much where it's taken me today. I'm now married. I'm now 30. Life is progressing in a beautiful way. And I'm very content. I'm very happy, honestly. Yeah? Yeah, I'm really good.
And where are you in the world? Because whenever I look at your Instagram, you are somewhere different.
Yeah, so alongside starting the business, pretty crazily, I also left London at the same time. I was living in London at the time. it was all in the height of the pandemic, and I was like, I don't want to be here for another lockdown. So there were certain countries that were still open. I didn't have to be here anymore because I transitioned my business online. So I was like, okay, let me get out of here. And then I ended up like doing a month or two in every single country, and I did that up until I met my now wife in 2022. Then we did it together. She'd never been to Europe at the time, so we wanted to go crazy in the first
Yeah.
year. And I think we did probably like 7 countries throughout the course of the summer, went back to Mexico, and now we slow it down a little bit. So we don't have anywhere which is like home.
Okay.
We like to call ourselves citizens of the world.
Love that.
Yeah, exactly. And now we kind of spend most of our time between Mexico, between the UK, Dubai, and Chile as well. We do like 2 or 3 months of
Nice.
those, but you might find us somewhere else as well.
That's cool. I love that. There's lots to ask here. So you actually went because of COVID?
No, it was more the sense of like, I was ready to get out of the UK.
Okay.
The UK is somewhere that has always been home, but I don't super identify with the culture so much. Like, I
Yeah.
don't feel fully British. I don't know how many people know this, but my dad's also from Iraq. So, exactly, I'm half English, half Iraqi. So, I grew up being known as like, not necessarily someone who was from a different country, but I wasn't Adam Smith,
Yeah, of
or
course.
Bob Smith or
Yeah.
Bob Adams or whatever,
Yeah.
right? Like I wasn't
Yeah.
like the whitest of white kid. So like people noticed that I was a little bit darker. I'm not so much like that anymore, but I was when I was growing up.
Yeah.
So I obviously didn't feel like I fully fit in fully with the English kids, even though I went to school with like a lot of different nationalities. So maybe that's like now I've done some work, now I've done some reflecting, some therapy work as well. That's maybe why I don't identify so much with being super British, full on. However, I was like at the stage where I was like, okay, I think there's more to life here. And now I've got nothing keeping me here. Let me try it out a little bit. And then obviously COVID gave us the beautiful opportunity. And I was like, yeah, I don't want to be here for another lockdown. I don't have to be here for one. So let me try out a different country. And then that's how it all begun. And it's not stopped yet either. And I don't know when it's going to stop.
That's great. Keep it going as long as you can. Yeah. So PTing, you've done that for 11 years. Was that always a passion, like growing up and, going into your adult years? Were you always a gym goer? How did that look like for you?
Yeah, so interestingly enough, I loved to play football, but I was like a chubby child. Like I had a
Same
little
as
bit
me.
of weight to me. Yeah, exactly. Like I was very sporty, but for some reason, my genetics at that time decided that they wanted to hold a little bit of body fat. And I was never like the overweight kid, but I was always like, had like little man boobs or boy boobs, whatever you want to call them at the time. And again, like a little bit of name calling, nothing like major bullying, but to the point where it's like, again, you're not crazy different, but you're a little bit different from like the popular kids or something like that. So even though I loved sports, it didn't quite like look like I loved sports, if you know what I meant. And then eventually it gets to one summer, I think it's like I'm 14 or 15 years old, and I'm like, I need to do something about this. Like, what can I do? And Google like exists at the time, maybe in its like kind of infancy, but I was like, okay, how do I get 6-pack abs or something like that? And then I think it was literally like, how do I get a body like Zac Efron or David Beckham? Like
Amazing.
Those are my two goals at the time. And then everywhere I looked, it was like high protein, low carb. And I was like, okay, I like literally went to my freezer because my parents were still cooking for me at that stage, as
Of
you
course.
do when you're a little teenage boy. And I was like, okay, this has a good amount of protein. These are literally like bird's eye breaded chicken breasts. And I'm like, perfect. This has 20 grams of protein. Wasn't paying any attention to anything else. I was like, 20 grams of protein. I was like, okay, my mum's a vegetarian. She's got vegetarian burgers. All right, 2 of those, that equates to this. And then I started doing it like that. And then I got these little mini weight set from Argos, like 1, 2s, and 3 kilos.
Argos.
Exactly. And then I ended up going to the gym eventually because they had like, it was like a very small investment for under 16s. So I was able to go and get into the gym, and then I got the bug,
Did
because
you?
I came
Yeah.
back the next summer from school looking different. People were able to change. I spent my like whole afternoon there, so I stopped like hanging out with my friends at the gates at school. As you
Yeah,
did,
yeah.
you hang out with them. I was like, okay, let me skip that part. I head straight home because of part of this cheap price for under 16s was that you could only go from hours of 3 to 5. So I'd rush home from school, get there for like 3:20, and then I'd spend like the next 2 hours. And then if you got there before 5, they wouldn't really kick you out or know you were there.
Yeah.
So I stayed there probably for like 2 hours a day, like 5 days a week. And I was really, really committed. I just loved it. I was like, I was so
Really?
excited. And I could see the changes as well. So I was like, then I came back the next summer, like not a complete transformation, but enough for people to notice. And ever since then, I was like, wow, this is awesome. Like I figured this out for myself. If I can help people figure this this out to you, that would be pretty cool.
That's really cool. I love
Mm.
that story. When did you leave school? 16, 18?
So I went to try and do sixth form, I think that's what it's called, when you
Yeah.
do your A levels.
Yeah, yeah.
I did like 1 year and I was like, okay, this is not for me. Then I went to try and do college and I did like a football one. I was like, okay, let me try and see if I can get back into the sports side of things. Didn't work for me.
Yeah.
And then I went into doing it and I did sports science. And I was like, this makes sense. And there was like a gym element to that as well.
Nice.
So I kind of left school at 16, tried to do the sixth form thing. And then when I got to about, I want to say 19 years old, that was when I did the college. And then everyone was looking into university next. I was like, I don't really feel this university thing. And then I found this thing that said, okay, you can qualify as a personal trainer in 6 weeks. And I was like, oh, that sounds great. I'm like, 6 weeks?
Make some money.
Yeah, exactly. And where I lived in Oxford, there was these LA fitnesses, and you would always see the trainers walking around town, and it literally said like LAPD, but it said LAPT. And I was like, oh, that looks really cool. I'd love to be one of those one day. And literally, I was like, okay, let me try this. And it was like I know, a $3,000 investment, which was a lot for me at the time, but I paid it in installments. I did my 6 weeks, and then like 7 weeks after like my start date, I was a personal trainer, like 19 years old, ready to go.
And the big question is, did you become LAPT?
I did become an LAPT. I had the polo shirt and everything.
Purple, right? Was it purple?
No, the purple was for like the fitness instructors. So you weren't so cool if you wore one of those. But I did because when you first start, so this is how, like, I don't know if it still works like this, but what it used to be in gyms is that you would either work for the gym and not pay so much rent for personal training, or you would basically be a full-on personal trainer, then you paid rent to the gym. But when you're jumping in, you don't want to like pay I think it was like £700, which is quite a lot at that time up front. So I was like, part-time purple, but then I was the LAPT from time to time. Then I've become a full-blown LAPT and I felt very good about myself.
Nice. I love that. I used to be a member of LA Fitness.
Did you?
Yeah,
There you go.
in my
You
hometown.
must remember them,
I
though.
do. I do
the black
remember.
polos,
Yeah, and I used to go to
exactly.
spin classes. That's where I found my love of spin, actually. So yeah, how interesting. So you then were gym based
Yes.
PT for how many years?
About 6 or 7 years, yeah.
Right. And did you love it?
I did at the time. Yeah, I really did. I thought it was really cool to help people out in that framework. But then eventually I got to a point where I was like, okay, like I'm kind of seeing a lot of clients, but I'm not seeing a lot of results.
Yeah.
And that was something that was kind of disheartening because I was like, okay, this was kind of what they're hiring me for. And I feel like I'm trying to make progress here. I'm really committed to their journeys, but something's not adding up here. I was a little bit confused about it. So I kind of lost a little bit of passion. And then I transitioned into Transformation Studios in London, which is the next part of my journey. I was like, wow, like I went from a personal trainer to a transformation coach. And that's a very, very different, kettle of fish altogether. And I loved it. I was like, oh, wow, like this is what I thought it was going to be. I was like, now I have a superpower because someone comes in, sees me for 6 to 12 weeks, they go out a completely different human.
Yeah.
And that was fantastic. So that was like reignited my love for it. But yeah, the personal training was amazing to begin with because I was like, wow, like this is super, super cool. But then eventually I was like, okay, like I don't want to just have someone like hire a friend for 60 minutes whilst I watch them exercise.
And has that passion then remained? Like, have you, I've known you as an online coach. So have you kept that throughout all these years, or has there been?
Yeah, it's been peaks and troughs. It really has. Yeah, exactly. And I think that any time that I go through a little bit of a lower period, I have to kind of connect back to why I'm doing it still because it changes. When I first started, it was just something that was really cool. Then it became, okay, I want to get people's results. Then it's like, I want to get people really good results. And then it's like, okay, now I want to go online because I want to help even more people. And now I want to go online and I help more people, but I also want them to get amazing results. So I have to really connect back because if your purpose and your why for it kind of changes, like there's this overarching big reason why you're doing it, which is I really want to help people. But then you also have to look at like, well, how does that fit in with the framework that you're using right now? And also the way of your life, because as life changes, so do your whys and your reasons for doing these things as well. So no, it's been up and down, but I'm staying strong. I'm still in the industry for this long. I don't think there's that many people who survive that long in this industry. So that's something that I'm kind of proud of now for staying for so long. And also when I first went to my body transformation studio, I knew guys who were there for like 5-6 years and they were so burnt out and ready to like just leave and
Exactly.
when you think of the client on the other end of that, it's not a good place for them to be. And I was like, I don't want to be that trainer. Like if my time's up, I want to dip out gracefully. I don't want to get to a point where my clients are like, oh, another check-in with Elliot or another session with Elliot. Do you know what I mean? Like I want to go at a good moment, but being able to keep pulling it back in, finding the reason why I want to do this. And yeah, we're in a really good place right now.
Good. One thing that I spoke to Lauren on the first episode about this, is that the change since COVID on
Yes.
people's goals around fitness. We also talked about nightclubs and younger people. Like, there's less interest.
There is.
I think nowadays it's changing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was listening to another podcast the other day with my favourite Nick Grimshaw, and they were talking about the nightclub industry in the UK like completely changing and closing because young people are just not interested. I think fitness has changed completely, right?
Yes.
Like, do
it
you?
really has.
And you've got a lot of online clients,
Yeah.
that keep coming through all over the world.
Yes, all over
That's
the
the
world.
thing that I find amazing, is that
Yeah.
you're not just UK based.
No.
How have you seen that change like over the last couple of years?
Yeah, definitely. I feel that with the pandemic kicking in, I think people realized that they don't have to go to gyms. And then they also realized that their health is a bigger priority than maybe they gave it credit for. So that was a really nice insight for everyone, is that, okay, this
Yeah.
health thing isn't something I can take for granted. A lot of people unfortunately saw people that they loved and cared about who were very close to them pass. So I think that was like, and they also had an opportunity to let that sink in and reflect, right? We lose people all the time from diseases that we know about, but because of we kind of go on with our lives and it wasn't happening in such a global fashion, we don't take it quite as seriously. Whereas when it came to COVID, it was like a almost a worldwide reflection point as
Yeah,
well.
totally.
So that made some big impact, and made a big impact to the world in many ways, but also when it came to people's recognition that their health and fitness really matters. So that was awesome, because a lot of people started to take it seriously. All of a sudden they went from, I want to get in shape for my holiday in 6 to 12 weeks, to be like, I still want that, but deep down, I don't want it in an unsustainable way, because I know that I also want to look after my health as well. It's like there's this bigger picture reason that like underpins all people's goals now. It's like, okay, yeah, I want to get in shape, but also I also want to look after my health for the next like bunch of decades as
Yeah.
well. So that was a huge transition.
And maybe it's not as much anymore about, I want to do it as quickly as possible, get that photo and
Exactly.
then revert.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people revert, right?
Precisely.
It's about keeping that goal long
Yeah,
term.
sustainability came up a lot. When people came to me, all of a sudden it wasn't like, I just want to get to this result. It was like, I also want to be able to hold this long term as well. And I think that's a fantastic move. Like, that's a good shift for everyone, the people
Yeah.
who wanted to do it and the trainers in the industry as well, because they had to learn how to now do that. It
Yeah.
wasn't just like, that's what I kind of had a difficulty with whilst I was in London in the Transformation studios as well, is that you know how expensive they are, right?
Very.
So realistically, people are like, okay, I can make this investment for this period of time to get my result, but then after, like, I can't pay these guys anymore. It's unsustainable for me. So where do you go then? And that's where I kind of fell out of love with that a little bit as
Yeah.
well. And I think that the industry is definitely shifting in a way that's like more about sustainability. Like even with the running craze as well. Like, why do you think people love to running? Oh, you're outdoors. You are moving your body and you're doing something for your cardiovascular health. Oh, you're connecting with a running club. Who
Yeah.
would have thought it? Like outdoors, moving your body and talking to people and daylight would be really
Exactly.
helpful. Like
Run clubs.
mind-blowing concept.
Run clubs have taken off, like particularly this year. I've seen so many now. Like, yeah, I mean, it's insane actually, the amount of access, like different things that we have access to. And obviously, I started with you, and like I was on your podcast almost 2 years ago, January
2023.
3, yes. And I think I said to you back then, like my initial plan was just to lose as much weight quite quickly, right?
Yes.
And then you go through the peaks and troughs and realize it's not all plain sailing.
No.
And then I joined those big, expensive transformation places, which didn't quite work out as well for me. But you know, I came back to you, and I think that's what really helped. And I just find it fascinating how you continue that passion when you don't get to see them. And you've just had your first meetup with people, haven't you?
Yeah, that was
How was
awesome.
that after many years of coaching some of these people?
It was so good.
Was it?
I don't know why it took so long to do it, but I'm like, the most important thing is that it happened. And I was so
Yeah.
happy when it did. I wish you could have been there, but at least we're here now, right?
We're here, exactly.
And it just gave me this realization that the online thing, it really works. And, you know, we got some amazing results together. We built a beautiful connection and relationship
Amazing, yeah.
without ever seeing each other until today. So we know it works. However, I think being able to bridge that gap between online and physical is the next stage. Like,
Yeah.
I think online coaching is evolving and it's changing. And I think that the people who can do that a little bit more often are definitely going to win. There wasn't a single member that left this weekend without a smile on their face and feeling like
Exactly.
connected to me more, connected to the community. They meet my wife, and they feel even more like a part of their team. And I think that that's really important. So it was amazing. And I think it was also awesome for you, like those guys and you as well, because you're like, I'm used to seeing you in the bottom of my
I
corner
know.
as a little circle,
Yeah.
but you're a real human, right? Like I
Yeah,
think there's something different to just like feel my energy, be able to hug me, be able to say
totally.
hello. And I loved it. I loved it. And we're
Yeah.
going to be doing a lot more of those. That's
I
for
love
sure.
that. I love
Yeah.
that. Have you ever experienced anything around imposter syndrome? Like particularly online coaching, because there are so
Yeah.
many online coaches, right?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of times actually. The one would be when I joined the Transformation Studio. So
Mm,
that brand up until that point had an enormously impressive reputation, and that's what we spoke about when we were the trainers in Oxford. We would talk about them as being the gold standard
really?
of the industry. They were the ones who pumped out the best information, the best trainers, and the best transformations ultimately.
Yeah.
But obviously, as we spoke about a little bit off there, is that as a company gets bigger, it becomes more diluted.
Yeah.
And unless they can keep those values in place, it becomes really hard to do that when you get bigger and bigger. And I did, because I felt like I was on the cusp. I was like at the transition point where they were expanding to the point where they needed some trainers, but they were also still trying to hold on to their values. So I was like in this weird in between ground. Whereas if I signed up today with that knowledge that I had then, I'd probably feel quite comfortable because they've taken on a bunch of trainers who weren't super intelligent trainers at that time. And that's no offense to the standard trainers, that
Yeah.
these guys are really good. And then, but I wasn't an elite trainer at that stage by any means.
Yeah.
So I was like, how the hell did I get in here? Like every single person in this gym is a better trainer and they're more intelligent than me when it comes to health and fitness.
Mm,
So I felt quite uncomfortable, but I was like, okay, do you know what I can do? I can work really hard.
yeah.
I'm really good at that. And no one's going to outbeat me on that, outwork me on that. So I was like, okay, let me hammer down on my strengths. And then I did my own body transformation to make a point that I could also get in shape as well. And those type of things, that's what you have to do in those moments. That I found that leaning on my strengths was really powerful, because I was
Yeah.
like, oh, I really, like, they made me do a presentation. I was like, and then someone was like, why are you speaking so fast, Elliot? I was like, this is my pace of how I speak normally. What are you talking about? And it was really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But I just had to like be the hardest worker, because I couldn't be the most intelligent. I couldn't be the biggest. I couldn't be the strongest. I was like, okay, what can I do here? Okay, I can be the most committed to the gym. I can make sure it's as clean as possible. I can make sure that I'm as dedicated to my clients as possible. And then let me try and deliver the best results that I can as well. Let me soak up as much as these guys have got to offer me. And then I was able to fit in a little bit more. But that was probably the one and only time. Because outside of that, I feel like luckily my career has progressed as I have as well. So
Yeah.
each time that I've gone through this transition, it's kind of been in line. Maybe that's a sign to me that I should jump sooner and put myself out of my comfort zone. Because when I did that with the Transformation Studio, that was definitely outside my comfort zone. But luckily, I've been at a stage where I'm like, okay, I'm ready for that next step. I'm ready for that next step. I'm ready for that next step. So I've not had as much syndrome as most people do, because a lot of people speak about it all the time. No?
Yeah. Well, good for you. I think that's great. And it sounds like you know when the next thing is coming, like, and you really listen to that and jump with it.
Maybe I should just like minus a year off that time frame, and maybe I'd get to those places sooner. But yeah, at least the for the lack of speed that sometimes potentially I take, at least it doesn't come with any imposter syndrome, because I feel like
Mm,
I'm more than ready at that stage.
yeah.
So I'm like, oh, now I'm working to try and make sure that I make up for the year that I should have been here already. So maybe that's one advantage in itself. But yeah, maybe I can jump a little bit sooner next time.
Nice. um, so working remotely with clients, you're obviously you go around to different countries and you're out of the UK quite a lot. So you're away from family, away from friends, whatever. Like life is what it is for you right
Yeah.
now. Are there challenges with that? Like, do you
Yeah.
ever? I don't know. Like, I would imagine that I feel quite lonely at times. I don't know. But
Yeah.
like, because we always present ourselves, don't we? Like on the outside, we've got this great life. We've just got married. Both of us have just got married
Yes.
this year. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Um,
And to you.
Thank you. But are there challenges that come with that? Like,
Yeah.
putting yourself in such a space on your own, I suppose.
Yeah, I would say so. It's like the first time I went online, this was before everyone was kind of forced to work at home for the pandemic. It was like 2018. Like all of a sudden, I went from a gym of 12 trainers around me with their 12 clients who you get on with as well.
Mm,
Like you've been in those transformation studios or gyms, you kind of get to know other people's clients as well, right? It's like
yeah.
it's a little bit of a it's not a family vibe per se. I think that's a pushing it a little bit, but it's very friendly. Let's put it that way. And then all of a sudden I went to just me and my laptop in a living room at home.
Yeah.
And I would have to like go to coffee shops to like kind of be socialized a little bit more because again, like I didn't have an enormous amount of hobbies. So I was like, I'll go to the gym, but I'm there to work out. I'm not there to make friends. So
Exactly.
it's like I didn't really have that much of an outlet. But then obviously you get used to it after time. But going to different countries, it made it even more isolated because of then you're in a place where you don't actually speak the language. So it definitely wasn't the easiest transition. But then I would always have to weigh it up as like, okay, what are my priorities here? Okay, my work, to live like the freest life I can. And that was all good. And then I met my wife and it all changed. Like having her there every single day, I don't feel lonely for a second. And she wouldn't allow me to feel lonely because she's everywhere, all around, all the time, which I love. And it's amazing. It's a different style, right? Like before, it's like, okay, Elliot gets up at this time and he gets to work and
Yeah.
he doesn't have any distractions by any means whatsoever. But now I have her with me all the time. We travel the world together. So it's been amazing. The only thing I'd say that we're struggling, well, at least I am now, is I miss the stability.
Do
Like
you?
after 5 years of kind of going here, there, and everywhere, it's like sometimes I look at that suitcase, I'm like, oh, I've got to pack up 23 kilos, like my whole life in 23 kilos once again.
Do you know, I was thinking about you yesterday because I was thinking about this. Like, I've been away, for the last few weeks, and I really struggle to come back to the UK at the moment. Like every time I've gone away with Oscar and we come back, I really struggle. Whereas we flew into London the other day, and I was like, oh, I miss Hong Kong already.
Yeah.
And he's like, it's so nice to be back in London. And obviously he's from Hong Kong, so it's different.
That's it, yeah.
But I often wonder, like, I have this, I love being away. I love talking to the locals, like whatever. And I think, oh, I could do that.
Yeah.
But then I was thinking about you, like you've been away for a while now.
Yeah.
And I was thinking particularly about, packing all your stuff up. And I think it was this morning as well. I was thinking, God, we have a lot of stuff in this flat. And I was like, Elliot's going to come here and like, I've got my home established here. And then I was thinking, not in a bad way against you, but you don't have that, right?
No,
You're in a different
no,
Airbnb quite
exactly,
often.
yeah.
And like, how is that?
You do miss the stability. Like you miss having like a big thing that even my wife and I are going through is again, it's a first world problem. So I don't want people to be
I know.
woe is me. But it's like even we were thinking, well, we can't be that expensive with fashion because if it's like, oh well, you don't want to pack like a bright pink furry coat because you're only going to wear it once. It's like you need a practical jacket that you're going to wear kind of everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Or like a certain pair of jeans. I'm not going to take, like leather like pants, for example, because I'm like, okay, maybe I'm going to wear them once on a date and that's going to be it. And like small things like that, they're trade-offs though, right? Because at the end of the day, like my trade-off is the fact that I can't explore my fashion as much. But at the same time, when I go out for my walk, okay, perfect. So I've got different scenery to do it every couple of months, right? And someone else might only have their local park. And I'm not victims to the weather. I can go and fly to another place and I can have the sun whenever I want it.
Yeah.
So there is definitely pros and cons. But if we're taking the woe is me out of it, like there are difficulties. Even like when you move a lot and you are in a new Airbnb and you just go to open the drawer and you're like, the knives and forks aren't here. Where are they? And you like small things like that take up this cognitive energy that you're like, wow, like I wouldn't have to think about this if I was in my home, right?
Yeah.
And also you miss the warmth of your home and you miss also family as well. Like obviously now that you've got the same situation as that my wife's parents and family live in Mexico and mine live in Oxford. So, where to spend Christmas and all those different types of things.
Yeah.
It's like you do miss your family, right? You miss being with them. Like I've got an older dog as well. So every time we leave, we're like, is he there going to be there when I get back? And that's a tough thing to do. But at the same time, it's the choice that we make. I do miss that stability, honestly. Like, I think one day when we settle down, I'll be like, oh, I missed the life when we were able to just go everywhere. So I'm just trying to embrace the moment that we're in. But now that we are coming up to 5 or 6 years of doing this, or at least individually I am, together we're doing it. We're almost done it like 3 years. I'm like, oh, it would be nice to just like have a set office, have a home that we can invite people over to and all those nice things that you come along with it. But I'm very aware that having a stable home is going to be kind of forever once we do it. And this lifestyle, especially if we have kids one day or something, is not going to be something that's quite as easy. Maybe it's possible, but not quite as easy as it is today.
The other thing I often see you on Instagram is your local supermarket, right? As a trainer and wanting to stay in shape, like imagine when you move areas, it's like, right, first priority, find a gym and find a good supermarket.
Precisely. Those are the
really
two things.
hard.
Yeah, it's been... You know what? I say it's been easier than I expected. A lot of the world does. You have to be willing to adapt. I think that's the thing. If like when I left, I think that I was a little bit attached to, okay, I need a really premium gym to train in. Like I was transitioning from the gym that you're at, right? So I'm like, okay, I need the top of the top gym. However, you learn to make do. And now when I see a hotel gym that has like over 20 kilos dumbbells, I'm like, oh, this is a decent gym. This is a this is a good gym.
Exactly.
So that's the thing. You learn to adapt, and you basically end up finding what the country has. And this is the thing. When I come back to the UK, and I've got a bunch of UK clients as well, and I say to them, like, you have probably the easiest ride in terms of getting in shape nutrition wise in the world. Like, I've not seen a place that caters so well to like varieties of flavors, high protein this, low fat this, zero this, and you've got everything. And you've got a bunch of different supermarkets that are all catering to that. Like, if you go to,
Yeah.
like, we just came from Chile, they don't have that. Like, even just like Philadelphia lighters, they have the light, but they don't have lighters. And the light is like double the price of the normal one here. So I'm like, I come back to the UK, I'm like, you guys have got it easy.
Yeah.
Like, you really have.
I found that in Hong Kong doing high rocks. Like,
Mm.
obviously, I have in my head, I've done a few this year, and I always know what I need to eat before, like the night before.
Yes.
But Hong Kong was completely different. So I was like thinking, right, where do I get my carbs? Like,
Yes.
and it was a very different meal to what I'd had in other parts of the world. So, and particularly at home. So, yeah, I can understand
The
that a
UK
little
has
bit.
got it easy, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, I was thinking about doing a podcast myself about this as well. It's like, okay, you can walk everywhere. Like, that's one thing. In Mexico, for example, we barely walk. We kind of drive everywhere.
Really?
Yeah, that tends to be the case. You've got the supermarkets, which are amazing. You've got gyms everywhere. And if you want a budget gym, a 24-hour one, you've got it. If you want a super premium gym, you've got it. Those middle of the range gyms, they don't really tend to exist that much anymore, but you've got that as well. You're also not like the culture doesn't necessarily support it, but it also doesn't like put you down for it either. Like, if you're on a health and fitness journey, it won't be hard to find someone else who's also on a health and fitness journey as well. Like, you're going to find someone. It's not super, super common, but you're also not going to be like, wow, you're like super against the norm if you're doing this. Like, most people will know someone who's like
Yeah.
that. So you've got a bunch of different things that are in your favor to getting in shape in this country. So, and also, yeah, sorry, the final thing is that when you look around, you don't see enormous people everywhere. Like, we don't have like a epidemic of like, maybe we do have like health problems, but when I look around, I don't see obese people everywhere I look. Not really.
No.
You go to other countries, you see it more often.
What's it like living with Danny and working at home and being around each other all the time? You're going to say you love it, aren't you?
I think we've done a better job of it than we give ourselves credit for, because
Yes.
we're like, literally, the story with us is that after 10 days of knowing each other, we started living together. So
Love
we
that.
we only knew each other for 10 days, and we don't just live with each other, we travel the world together.
Yeah.
And most people's past relationships, they might have gone on holiday with an ex and it was like make or break. Like, literally, we had our first flight this many days later, and we haven't stopped since, and we're glued to each other. Like, I went to Dubai recently, and it was the first time that we'd spent like 1 or 2 nights apart in our whole 2.5 year
Really?
relationship. Exactly. So I think we don't give ourselves enough credit for how well we do.
Yeah.
Because also, like, we're not hiring out like Airbnbs that are like 5-bedroom homes. We're hiring 1-bedroom apartments, and sometimes there's a separate room, or sometimes we're working at the same table.
Yeah.
So I think it's amazing. Like, honestly, I wouldn't change it for the world, because
Good.
realistically, I think prior to her, I had this fun version inside of me that I'd only let out from time to time. And she literally just came along, pulled that version out, and now he's here all the time and just enjoying life at the same time. So it's now been a balance of like, okay, now how do we prioritize working and focusing and stuff
Yeah.
like that? I mean, I don't think that we've let it go entirely, but it's just been about trying to find that balance between the two. But it's been great fun.
Yeah.
I wouldn't change it for the world, and I know she loves it as well.
It's really interesting because I remember telling Oscar, I'm starting to see a change in Elliot's Instagram. And I really liked it because I think there was, for a really long period of time, it was Elliot.
Coffee, workout,
Literally.
and candle of journaling. or
Yeah,
something
yeah,
like
yeah.
that.
And then now we see a bit more about you, and I think that really helps bridge that gap and that connection to
For sure.
getting to know you, and actually that you're having a great life,
Yes.
which is really good. So life is pretty exciting. I want to just touch on a couple of bits that you mentioned. So you talked about therapy and like your identity.
Yes.
How was that? Like, tell me about that.
Yeah, it's been a huge journey for me. The first time I encountered therapy was hypnotherapy, and I did that in the years get a little bit blurry now, but 2017, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow.
for
Where
the
did you
first
do that?
time. In London. Unfortunately, my hypnotherapist doesn't practice anymore. She's now a physics teacher, so she's
Interesting.
impacting lives in different ways. I wish she was still a hypnotherapist, honestly. Like, once I had my experience with her, I literally referred everyone. So I thought she was amazing. So that kind of changed my paradigm entirely of myself, my life. Like I always like to think of it as prior to her and prior to that experience, I feel like I was sat in the seat of the captain, but my hands were like behind my back. Like,
Wow. Okay.
I felt like the ship was going and I was like, okay, I'm here for the ride, but I don't really know how to steer this thing. And then once I had hypnotherapy, it was like, okay, my hands are in front of me and they're actually on the steering wheel here and I can direct where I'm going on this journey. And it was massive. It was huge. It was one of the most insightful things I'd ever done. So I did those. Hypnotherapy was like the thing that really opened up like Pandora's box. Then I had to sort out what was inside of there. So I did a few hypnotherapy sessions. It solved a lot, but didn't solve everything. And then over the course of even up until just a couple of weeks ago, I've been doing cognitive behavioral therapy. I've had two therapists and I've done it probably on and off for about 2 years between the years of like 2020 and 2025. So I try and do weekly sessions and yeah, I'll go see a therapist for like maybe a stint of like 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, whatever it might be. And then I take a little break. I let life happen based on the learnings, and then I come back and I do it again.
Yeah, I think that's really important. We talked with Holly on the second episode about therapy and, the need for knowing when to stop.
Yes.
I've been with my therapist now 2.5 years, and
Okay.
we had a 6-month gap in between that, and that was really important.
Yes.
And now it's getting to that point of, right, I need to take another break
Yeah.
because if not, you're just talking and talking. I think you need to process it and
Yeah,
get
for
through
sure.
that. But
Yeah.
what was that burning thing to like go and do hypnotherapy?
For
And
me,
how long had you had it?
yeah, for me, I was in a really dark place mentally at that stage. And it's really weird for people to hear who know me today because they don't expect it. But I was not in a good place by any means whatsoever. I was just like not happy with life and for many different reasons, right? And those are the things you discover in therapy. And I just got to a point where I was like, I really need to do something. Something needs to change because of like living on a day-to-day basis was becoming very difficult. It was becoming a heavy task for me. And again, I would never put that face out to the world. I would kind of be like, just put a smile on my face and get on with it and everything. Like, how kind of you said with your previous guest when you mentioned like when you go into a class you have to forget your troubles of the world, you just put on a smile and you get after it. That was the kind of the same thing I was doing. So I was a personal training at the time and I was like, okay, I don't want to come into this session and not give my client energy. And I remember some of the trainers were like, Elliot, you just walk around like a zombie. Like, are you miserable? What's going on? Because I would
Really?
save all of my energy for my clients. Like I couldn't really I didn't really want to function socially or anything outside of that. And then I'd come to life when I had my clients because it's like they don't deserve to have a watered down session because of what I'm going through. And then I was lucky enough to speak to a guy who was there at the time. He was like, I have a feeling this might work. He was going for public speaking. I don't know if he actually was, and he's just putting like a label on it and he was just being like nice about it at the time. He was like,
Yeah.
I'm just going for public speaking. Maybe he was going through something. I don't actually know. He's like, just
Yeah.
give it a go. And I was willing to do anything at that stage because I was like, I just want something to work. And I went there and I was like, wow, were my problems really that tiny or was she really impactful? I think the reality is it's just a really impactful journey because of before therapy, it was like I said, with the hands tied behind my back, I didn't really know what was going on, why I was impacted. I didn't have this self-awareness or this knowledge about myself. I was just kind of like living day by day and just recognizing, certain things happen in life. I can control a certain amount. And then all of a sudden I just had this insight into myself. And it was like, again, I didn't become fully like a super conscious being, but I came with a level of self-awareness for the very first time. I was like, wow, this is something. And then all of a sudden it was like kind of night and day. Then obviously, as you know, you go through some stuff and you're like, okay, amazing, this has worked, but I still need to do the work in order to get myself to the place I want to be, right? So,
Yeah, it's not a case of just doing a session. It's like, oh, tick, done that for the week.
no, and it felt like with hypnotherapy, like I don't know if it's the experience with everyone, but it felt so incredibly relieving because I think it was like a 3-hour session. It was very intense, especially going from zero to nothing. Like I'd never done anything like that prior. And I did 3 hours of a session. I come out, I was like, whoa, that feels good. But then I was like, okay, then things start to crop up again. I was like, okay, this needs consistent work. It's not just this,
Yeah.
like taking the weight off and it's all of a sudden gone. Like I said, it was opening the box and then realizing, okay, I chucked out a lot of stuff, but there's still a lot of things there. And they're also deeper as well. Like, oh, you have to reach even further inside to get there, but you're more prepared to do it because of you've already gone through a lot of the big stuff, no?
Exactly. And that takes a lot of work. It's hard work, isn't it, to get to that deep stuff.
Yeah.
And I found for a really long time I was dealing with the issues of the week. So it was like, oh, let's talk about what's happened this week.
Yes.
But actually, without and he would always be like, yeah, but should we try and talk about
Yeah.
this thing?
And that's probably a coping mechanism in itself,
For
isn't it?
sure.
Like, it's like, okay, let me just distract with whatever is most urgent right now, but not what's important.
Exactly.
And I think it's a way of like, yeah, deflecting. Okay, well, if we spend too much time talking about this and I make it out like it's important, then we won't have to go there.
Yeah, exactly. Oscar would always say to me when I come back, he's like, yeah, but did you get into any of this stuff? Or some weeks would come up and I'd be like, I'm not sure what I'm going to talk about today. And he's like, well, why don't you use today to go straight into that? And I'm like, we'll see.
Those sessions when you don't know what to talk about tend to be the best ones as well.
Absolutely.
Right? It's like, I have nothing to talk about. And then you're like, how did we get there? But
yeah, exactly. What were some of the biggest learnings that you took from that then? Or that you're still learning?
Yeah. I think the big one for me was that like there was control that I could have over my life. Like I really feel that was the biggest one is that, and also that my thoughts aren't my reality. Like they're not the things that dictate where I go. They're just thoughts. And then obviously I can choose whether I integrate a thought or I can choose to have a different one. I can park them if I can. Like that was a big one for me is that I kind of, everything that was in my mind was kind of what my reality was. And obviously we know we have a lot of intrusive thoughts, a lot of thoughts that we don't want to have.
Yeah.
And a lot of those started to become my identity because I didn't know I could do anything different with them. So I started to like compartmentalize those and recognize, oh, actually that doesn't dictate who I am. And I could just park those and move forward. And, I was having different ways of processing things as well. Like I didn't know how to process my emotions by any means whatsoever. I got very into that time journaling, meditating as well. It's kind of everyone does, right? They go through their therapy journey and they're on a meditation and journaling kick. And, I think it's sometimes a little bit cliche, but it's also very helpful at the same time. At least it was for me at that time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it was just a big one to just understand the inside of my mind for the very, very first time, recognize that my thoughts weren't who I was and that I was in control of this ship and I could put it in whichever direction I wanted to. And also then recognizing, oh, well, this links to this. I think that understanding that as well. It's like, okay, I do something in my day-to-day today, but that's because of this happening. And this happening doesn't exist anymore. So I need to go and forgive that. I need to go let go of that so I can not have it impact my life today. And that's what's so interesting about people's health and fitness journeys as well. A lot of people think, it's just they don't like to exercise or they like to eat too much. It's like, well, it's way deeper than that.
Absolutely. And we talked about that on your our episode that I did with you. It was more than just losing weight.
Yes, and it always is. And I think people come in with the mindset of like, I'm just going to be following a diet plan. I'm just going to be following a training program. And all of a sudden it gets to a Friday night and you're asked the question of like, well, why did you go for that food on Friday night when you were feeling emotionally exhausted? And then all of a sudden they have to reflect on that. And that's sometimes why it's a heavier journey than people anticipate, right?
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. Wow. Thank you for being so honest with some of that stuff. So what does the future look like for you? What are your plans and your goals?
Like I said to you off air, I feel like we've been playing it small a little bit. Like I feel that very, very fortunately, I was able to meet my wife a couple of years ago because I now see building a business as significantly more easy than finding the person you want to spend the rest of your life with. So the fact that I don't want to not romanticize it, but that box is ticked, so to speak. Like I found the person and I'm going to continue to nourish and build the relationship. I think that's a beautiful box that needed to be ticked and was really meaningful to me. But now it's like, okay, well, that area of my life is good in a good place. And now it's like, how can we play it even bigger in many different ways? So I want to do a lot more things with the coaching. I want to do a lot more things with the experiences that my wife and I have and, just continue to go even harder and just build things even bigger than they have and not play small anymore. Yeah.
Good for you. Good for you. I'm excited to see how it changes because I feel like I've known you since the beginning almost of EHC a little bit, like 2020, right? So I'm excited to see where you take it.
Yeah.
What about family?
Family is on the agenda for us. I think that we've kind of had this back and forth. Like there's been moments in our relationship where I've wanted to have kids immediately, and then my wife has wanted to have kids immediately, and then we've kind of gone back and forth between the two. And now we've come to a point where we're like, okay, these past few years have been a bit of a whirlwind. We've had something on. We met the first year, then we got engaged the second year. Now we've got married. So it's like, okay, maybe if next year is just a year where nothing major happens, could be a good thing. We can focus on different things. So I think it's going to be on the agenda for us, and it's something that's a priority for both of us. But I think we're also recognizing, okay, let's maybe just slow things down for like the next 12 to 24 months and then determine where we want to be at that stage, take it year by year. So it's definitely something I would love to be a dad. I'd really love to be. I think it would be fantastic. And I know that my wife would make a beautiful mum as well. So I think it would be awesome for us to raise children with the mindsets that we have now and see, what we could create off the back of that. I think it would be a beautiful, beautiful experience for everyone.
Yeah. Oh, I'm excited to see what happens. Biggest life lesson or bits of advice you want to share with other people? Because you've been through a lot in your
Yeah.
adult years, particularly.
Yeah, I would say so. I think that I'm a big fan of just taking action and doing things. I think that there's so much life to be lived and things to be achieved and opportunities to be discovered off the back of just taking action. And then coming back to that imposter syndrome thing we spoke about earlier, I think there's so many people limit themselves based on usually their own minds, and that's it. Like, what would be the worst that could happen if you start and tried X, Y, or Z? And usually, if you can just get yourself to the nearest point of action, that kind of just really reduces all the overthinking that stops so many people. But also the challenge is the longer you leave it, the more you have to think about and procrastinate on. So it's like a very, very vicious cycle in that sense. So if I can encourage people to just take action as quickly as possible and then learn as they go versus feeling like they need to be super, super ready and qualified to do something before they actually take action, that would be an amazing thing. Because I think a lot more people would be a lot more fulfilled. They would be doing the things that they want to do. And also they'd learn quicker, at the end of the day, is that you can be as prepared as you want, but that I think that only helps to a certain point. And after that, it's kind of like what you said with the therapy thing of like, okay, well, I want to talk about the week to week because that's important. It's like, well, I want to do the preparation because that's important. But it gets to a point where it actually becomes counterproductive because it's taking you away from the thing that you actually need to discuss or do, right?
Yeah, we just talked about this, didn't we, before this episode?
Yeah.
Like, people ask me about, you're doing online coaching yet? I've got the qualification, and I keep saying, I need to do my branding and get the website ready, and I need to do my level 4,
and all of that is just excuses as to why you're not starting.
I know.
Right? Like that's what it comes down to.
But that comes down to imposter syndrome, and maybe I'll take your advice from this episode. Take action.
There was something that a coach said to me or a mentor said to me in the past. He got it from a film that he's never watched, but someone else said it. He said that it was about someone who ended up teaching university students their degree and like basically posing as a professor. And then after a few semesters, he gets caught and they ask him, well, how did you even teach them? You're not qualified to do this. He was like, I just read the textbook one chapter ahead of what they were doing. And the learning that my coach took from that, he said that, well, are you a chapter ahead or are you 10% ahead of where your clients are right now? And usually the question is yes. He's like, well, you could probably help them get to where they want to be at least. So it's not necessarily saying, okay, I'm going to go take someone through, well, this is the thing, you've been through a life-changing transformation and many people haven't. So what would stop you from taking someone through that life-changing transformation? You've got the qualification as well, which again, someone might say is the thing that holds you back, but you've got that, you've got the life-changing transformation. It's like, and are you 10% or a chapter ahead of the people you'd be helping?
Yes.
There you go. There's your answer.
Oh, I love that. I'd never thought about it like that. And it's so easy to go into that imposter, isn't it? And be like, oh, well, I'm not as good as all these other coaches that exist online. But everyone is looking for something different.
For sure. And they'll also find you potentially more relatable as well. Like I think people choose coaches based on two things. If you can nail both of them, it's going to be amazing. The first is kind of inspiration of where they want to be. And the second is relatability. So you would win massively on the relatability because a lot of people would have been in that position. And they'll also aspire to do the things that you've done. All these high rocks as you've done, the transformation that you've done as well. So I think that there's really nothing stopping you. It's like, you might not. And this is what I say to my wife all the time. It's like, there's enough business for everyone. Like, there's more than enough, unfortunately, like overweight people in this world, people who need help with their health and fitness. So all you're looking for, if you want like a successful business, is like, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 of those people. And then like, there's a lot of people in the world. You only need to go in the center of London to see how many people there are.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you're like, this is the thing, like just sit on the tube one day, look around and be like, that could be my client. That could be my client. That could be my client. It's like, wow, like,
and they all look different.
Yeah. And we're only on this tube.
Yeah.
And we're only in this country. We're only in this city. We're only on this specific day of this train on this day, and thinking about how many people are out there in the world.
If you could have coffee with anyone dead or alive, who would it be?
Can I pick more than one person?
If you like.
I would like to. Yeah, so I have had a think about this, and I had a thing you were going to ask me as well. I came prepared. I would love to bring all my grandparents together from both sides. And if I could bring them to dinner with my parents as well to see kind of how they engage with each other, the type of questions they'd ask with each other, I think it'd be awesome. Like to have me, my wife, my parents, and both sets of grandparents, because I only met one grandparent out of four. So I think it'd be fantastic to just see what questions they would ask them, to get the discoveries, like understand my parents a little bit more as well based on their upbringings. I think it'd be a very nice family dinner.
I love that. Something that doesn't happen very often, I don't think.
No.
Maybe in some families, but it certainly isn't my experience.
No, yeah, exactly. I think it was just like, I think that as you grow older as well, your parents begin to make a little bit more sense to you. So if you also saw their parents and how they relate to them, I was like, oh, okay, this all makes sense now. No, I think it'd be really fascinating. I think it'd be really interesting, really fun.
Do you have another one?
If it was a celebrity person, which I know that some people have mentioned as well, I'd love to speak to Cristiano Ronaldo.
Would you?
Yeah, I'd love to.
Where would you take him?
Where would I take him? I think where would he take me? He probably knows a lot better places than I do, right? I'd let him choose.
Don't know, you've travelled a lot.
Yeah, that's fair, but he earns significantly more than I do.
True,
so
true.
I think he's probably have a few more open doors. I'd be like, wherever you want to go, Ronaldo.
What do you want to chat about?
I would just a little bit of everything. I would, here's the caveat as well. I would love to be able to speak fluent Portuguese by that time, because he speaks in English and he speaks very good and fluent English. But I can imagine, when you're in your native language and how untapped you would be.
Totally.
I'd love to just get his insights on life, his mentality, what keeps him working so hard on his passion. Like he's been a footballer all his life, and usually people stop when they get to the age of like 30, and he's still at the highest level, 38, 39 years old. I'm like, wow, that's a different type of mentality.
Yeah.
There's only a few people that, in the celebrity industry, let's say, that you can pick out. There's Elon Musk's and Jeff Bezos and people like that. And he's one that's very aspirational to me. So I'd love to just, pick his brain from that, so to speak.
There you are. So for Ronaldo, you're listening.
Yeah, exactly. Ronaldo, if you're ever having a listen of episode 3 or 4 of ChatterBeans, you know where to find us.
Exactly. So it's time for the quick fire round.
Oh,
Are you excited?
I'm always excited.
What is the first thing you do in the morning?
I either hydrate or I pee. Yeah, one of the two, whichever has the highest demand. Either if I've got a super dry mouth or I really need to go to the bathroom, one of those two will happen.
Nice. Hydrate. That is one thing I need to get better at, is drinking water in the morning.
First thing I do, I've gotten to the habit of now where it's like I feel weird if I don't do it.
Really?
And it's such an easy time to get it knocked out for the day as well.
Favorite place you've visited and why?
Ooh.
Because you've been to a lot of places.
Yeah, speaking of Portugal, Lisbon's got a soft spot in my heart.
Has
I
it?
really like Lisbon. Me and Danny haven't had an opportunity to go together yet, but it was one of those places that I started my journey of traveling on when I left in 2020, and I really enjoyed it. It was really, really nice place, really good city. So I'd say there, and Mexico City as well. I had a calling there prior to meeting my wife, then I met my wife there as well, which I think further reinforced. There was a nice quote, maybe I'm going to butcher it if I can remember it, but it was something along the lines is like, if you feel called to a city, there's a story that's been written for you that you haven't lived yet. And I always feel that there's something about Mexico City that I was always drawn to that city and that country. And now it all makes sense because I met my wife there. I was like, it's a beautiful way of putting it.
Favorite way to spend your day off?
Ooh,
Do you have a day off?
I don't tend to. I prefer not to, but I would say probably is a nice balance of like something active in the morning, like something that gets me outdoors, either a run, either a gym session or something like that. And then just a super chilled day at home afterwards. Like, I don't like the whole thing where you need to earn your rest, but I like that idea. It's like, you've done something like super active, you feel productive. Now you can just like, okay, I'm ready to chill now.
And do you like switch off all your devices? Because you spend a lot of time on your laptop, right?
Yeah, like I'm good at not going on my laptop if I'm not working. And the phone, again, like maybe there's moments where I'm a little bit more attached to it, but I'm kind of good at putting down my phone, honestly. Yeah, so I wouldn't say that's that much of an issue. I just need to tell myself, like, okay, if I'm switching off and I'm fully like putting it away, fully put it away. It's when you leave the door open, like, just check a message. That's when it gets a little bit difficult. But if we like, okay, no phones, I'm kind of good at that, actually, yeah.
I think you're quite good at, and something that I've really tried to change recently is you don't live post, like when you're on holiday with Danny, for example.
Yeah,
because I used to be so bad. And I remember Oscar saying to me in the first few trips, like, what, you're going to upload every single bit of our trip as it's happening.
Yeah.
And now what I try and do is either leave it until the end of the day and I put like 3 or 4 of my favorites of the day, or a few days of pictures. So you're quite good at that, I think.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
I usually don't post as like for example, today, I did my blood test this morning. I'm going to have like a little Instagram story about that, but you won't see it until I get home tonight. So I'll probably prepare it on the way back home, but it's not posted in that moment of like, here I am doing this, or we'll get a selfie afterwards, and I'll probably post it later tonight. I won't post it immediately.
Exactly.
Yeah. Me and Danny have had that challenge because obviously we travel to a lot of places, and she then gets into the other position of like, I've got so much content and now I don't know what to post. But it's like, I like your idea. It's just taking the 3-4 like highlights from the day and just throwing it up. I think it allows you to be a lot more present, and it's much quicker to just take a shot and put it back in your pocket than take a shot, upload it, get the location tag, like make
the
sure
filter, the hashtags.
Yeah, exactly. The Wi-Fi, making sure that that's functioning so it goes up and doesn't like, it's like, I'll retry again.
I know.
Yeah. So it kind of takes you out of the moment. So I think, just trying to take the shot and then post it later. I love that. 3 or 4 from the day and that's it.
Yeah, definitely. If you could time travel, would you go forwards or backwards?
Would I have to stay there, or could I just like visit and go back?
No, you can visit.
I'd like to visit the future. Yeah.
Would you?
Yeah, I'd like to visit the future.
What for?
Just to make sure everything's going as I want it to. And if not, I'm like, okay, get to work, Elliot, or let's head in this direction. I don't think I have much business with going back to the past, honestly. Like, I feel that, would I relive a couple of moments? Yeah, a few, but like, if I want to visit them in my memory or photos, then I can do that. I have more business with the future than I do the past. So I'd say that, probably for the future.
What's the weirdest thing you've Googled recently?
Weirdest thing I've Googled. The only thing that comes to my mind, but it's not that weird, is that, have you watched The Nightmare Before Christmas?
No.
Okay, we're just Googling the name of the main character, Jack's dog, because we're trying to see if it was any relation to the other Tim Burton films.
Okay.
So it's not that weird, but it's a little bit of an unusual one. Yeah, I guess. But no, other than that, no, the kind of basic Google searches, honestly.
Perfect. If your life was a movie, what would the title be?
I'd say something like The Unexpected Journey. Something like that. Like, I don't feel that I anticipated the way that my life was going to go. I don't think if you spoke to people that I went to school with, they would have anticipated my path as well. So I would say it's pretty, like, even if you asked me 5 years ago, do you expect to be traveling the world and doing all this stuff? I'd probably say no. I'd be like, this is probably not going to be my life, and it has ended up being it. So I would say, it's a pretty solid movie title. The Unexpected Journey.
Love that.
Yeah, starring Elliot Hasoon. I'd be my own actor as well. I'm still young enough to do it.
Elliot Hasoon as Elliot. I love it.
Exactly.
Thank you so much. I've loved sitting down with you and getting to know you, and like seeing you in person after all these years.
Yeah,
it's been amazing. So thank you so much. Where can people connect with you?
I think the best place is Instagram. I'm super active there. So it's just at Elliot Hasoon, which is ELLIOT HASOON. And you can find everything based on my Instagram.
Amazing.
And soon you'll see Isaac's mind-blowing transformation on there as well.
Possibly.
It might even be live by the point this episode goes live.
Maybe that would be a nice thing. Well, it looks like your Black Americano has come to an end.
It has, yeah.
So thank you so much. And it's been great.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for tuning in to ChatterBeans. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation. If you liked this episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. And for more behind-the-scenes moments, guest updates, and a peek into the world of ChatterBeans, follow us on Instagram at chatter.beans. Until next time, grab a coffee, sit back, and let's keep chatting.